Welcome everybody to Service Design Drinks Berlin. This is our end of year special. I have a special surprise. Me and Alfred Rudolph, also probably known, joining in today. We are very excited to be here, and we are very excited to have an awesome guest to wrap up our year of 2021. We have had some amazing events this year, many different guests from many different places. We are very, very excited about tonight as well. So, if you have just joined us, it'd be great if you can say where you're joining from, and also something that is super awesome that happened in the year 2021. We have lots of great news to share already, and it's been good to see that with everyone that's joining and to celebrate that together. So that's really good. I feel like we need some good news at the end of this year. So the question is, does everyone have a drink, coffee, tea? I have a nice Prana chai tea here and a whiskey to my side, but you can drink some milk or wine or water, whatever suits your time zone. Marc has some better. That is fantastic. So whatever suits your time zone, whatever you're drinking, please grab a drink. This is Service Design Drinks, of course. So we are a community of practitioners, service designers, and designers of all different types, people who are interesting, people who are practicing. We are predominantly based in Berlin, but of course, we are super excited to have people that join us from wherever around the world. We are so excited to have you all with us as well. We love to look in, including everybody, meeting new people and networking, leveling up a little bit, learning different skills, asking the experts how they do their stuff. We love sharing and learning and connecting and having drinks together. We would love to be doing this in person, of course, and we have had a few in-person events. It's been great to meet some of you as well, but we're going to do this one for local conditions in a remote setting as well, just to be safe. Okay, so who is behind this? We have Marty Ferrero, who is a service design lead at Fjord, and he is way across in South America at the moment. But then we have also Mella. It's like, say hello, Mella.
Hello, I'm Strategic Design Director at Edin Spiekermann.
Really
we still need to change that slide. But that's actually good news that happened to me. I changed jobs this year.
Is good. Congratulations. Then we have myself, and I am a senior service designer at Zalando. And something good that happened to me is I got to speak at a conference for the first time. So that was very, very exciting. That was a good check off for me. And then we have the lovely Dee Scarano.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Dee Scarano. I'm freelance innovation coach person, consultancy person. Something good that happened to me. There were lots of birthdays, friends' birthdays that just happened in the last few months, and it was really wonderful to still be able to celebrate them actually in person. Let's hope maybe it continues for a little bit longer that way. We'll see. But yeah, nice to see everyone.
That is great. Okay, so let's introduce the man of the hour. We are very, very honored to have with us a fantastic, I would say, bit of a hero of mine, I have to be honest. I first came across Marc Stickdorn when we were getting drunk after the Surface Experience Camp many years ago. And since then, I think we've had a pretty good friendship with a few of us. We were talking about the intricacies of Austrian dating life in the Alps and how there seems to be smaller communities there within the mountains. But, you know, let's not talk about that today. We're going to be talking about Journey Map Ops. But Marc is obviously quite well known within the service design field. He has also been the author of 2 amazing books, which are often called the Bible of Service Design. That's Service Design Thinking, and this is Service Design Doing. And he is also the co-founder and CEO of some amazing software and tools for all service designers to use, and that is in the modern metrics. Do you want to say a quick hello there, Marc?
Well, what can I add? Hello, thanks for having me, but it will just go downhill after this intro. Well, thanks a lot. I'm looking forward to tonight.
Oh, well, that is good. So here are the books in case you didn't know them, but I kind of assumed. And also, I found out that there's also an executive school, which is actually happening right now. So Marc has like abandoned his executive school for
I sneak it out.
Break. Don't tell anyone that Marc sneaked out to be with us, but he's also running and facilitating the service design doing executive school, which is something we're going to talk about a little bit later. Okay. So then let's get started with some questions. Now, this is how we usually run. It is a fireside chat. Marc is going to be answering some of our questions. Now, if you have questions, could you please put them in the chat and we will source them. We have some note takers. If you have some resources or links or anything that might be coming up that you find inspirational, also put them in the chat there as well, because we like to collect those and share them out to the broader community as well. So it's not just for us here, but anyone that might be watching the recording or couldn't make the event, we would also like to share some great questions and resources with them. So feel free to throw them in the chat and we'll do there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to start asking some questions to Marc while we have his time here.
Adam, before we go on, a couple of people have said in the chat that there's a crackly sound and I didn't hear it. And some other people also said it's fine, but maybe we could just quickly ask the audience to raise your hand or type in the chat if you're also experiencing it, or if it's just maybe one or two people that's something on the other side, because we have 70 people here. So we want to make sure that people can hear.
That is a good suggestion.
Type in the chat if you are also experiencing crackling, just so that we can, okay. So maybe
when my voice gets too excited and I start to squeal a little bit, I understand that also could be
maybe it's just Adam, yeah.
And just me as well.
It seems like it's good for most people, so
right.
we'll continue. Thanks, Adam.
Feel free to raise a hand or write in the chat if it starts to crackle again, and I will calm myself down a little bit so that we don't break any speakers. No, anyway, but okay, so Marc, first question, really tough one. For those that don't know who you are, besides my lovely introduction there, who are you? What is your role? And what does your role involve? And I know this might be a tricky question for you to answer, but could you give it a shot?
I try to. I'm Marc, a German living in Austria in the middle of the mountains in Innsbruck. We got tons of snow outside already. I just remembered, I forgot to add what happened to me as a good thing this year. I think the birth of our second daughter, that was a really good thing. Yeah, Malu, 8-month-old, yeah, sleeping next door, so I have to be quiet. No, I don't, because our 3-year-old is like crying anyway. So if you hear like crying kids in the background, it's all okay. They're just trying to sleep. That's all. Who am I? That's a tough one. So I wear different hats. You probably know the books and so on. I do that on the side as a passion, I would say, because one of the things that really strives me is to bring service design into as many hands as possible, because I really believe in the power of it. I really believe in the impact we can have on customer experience, on citizen experience, patient experience, employee experience, whatever field you're working in. So I'm probably not popular with that, but I try to commoditize what we're doing because I think it's not rocket science. And I think more and more people should be able and at least have access to the stuff we're doing. So I do lectures at universities, at schools sometimes. I do public stuff like this for free because I really want to bring it out there. And then I also need to earn money, and I do this with our company, More Than Metrics, where we build software for people who do service design. So our clients are usually in-house teams who need to do journey mapping and so on. And we offer a solution for that. And then I do some trainings, either in house or public ones, like the one that is running right now, where I sneaked out and let them work with Adam and Marcus. And beside that, I'm a dad, 2 kids, and love the outdoors, and that's me.
Fantastic. Okay, I mean, simply answered, but also quite a lot there on your plate as well. I wonder how you balance it. But let's go on to the next question. What is your favorite meal or a meal that you would have to celebrate?
I think it's something I discovered just this year, and it's a vegetarian burger based on peas, and I absolutely love that stuff. We eat it now once a week because it's so good. And I heard there's a pea crisis coming up, and I'm really afraid of that now.
Sorry, a P crisis?
A P crisis, yeah. Apparently, I saw it in the news today. It's no joke, but most of the peas come from Canada, apparently, and there was a drought, and so there is a shortage on peas coming up next year.
I hope
Be
we
prepared
have
for that.
a happiness crisis there as well. All right. Sorry, had to throw it in. Okay, next question. What, and I know this one might be a little bit biased, but your best holiday destination?
It's probably Portugal, because I lived there for 2 years and I love it. Bem-vindo.
What is the most interesting design client / project you consulted on?
There is stuff I cannot talk about, unfortunately. But probably it's more a general work and not one thing, and that is service design is on the national curriculum of high schools here in Austria, and I started educating the teachers in Austria in service design many years ago, and we're still doing it. There is one whole stream of schools in Austria where students at the age of 15, 16 learn service design for an entire year at high school. I think that's pretty cool.
That is very cool. Wow. I will think about that if I have kids one day. That is good to know. If you got to invite anyone for dinner, besides your family, because we know you love your family, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Tough one. There's so many, but maybe Muhammad Ali.
Oh, okay, nice choice.
It's such a wild life story with so many interesting aspects of it. I would love to have an evening with him.
Okay, next one. This is about things, because we understand also, you know, what is your most prized or / expensive thing, possession that you own? Besides the books.
It's from a price perspective, it's probably our brand new camper van that we got this summer. Like with 2 kids, we needed to upgrade, and that's pretty cool. But it's it's hard to say. And on a more like less price tag related point, I would say it's my closest friends. Okay,
2 more rapid fire questions. The next one is, what was the first job you ever had? What was the first job you ever got paid for?
The first official legally job where I was allowed to earn money was probably a pizza delivery boy.
Okay. What was the legal one that you're not?
The legal one was when I was, how old was I? Maybe 12 or 13 years old, and in the local newspaper where I grew up in Germany, I put in a classified ad for free. There was one day when you could add free stuff, and I said that like student does garden work for a ridiculous low amount of money at that time. I think like count into euro, it was like €3.50 per hour. And then I spent hours in the garden of some random people. I don't think you could do that nowadays anymore. Yes. Yeah, doing some garden work there in the rain.
Okay. I can see from a young age you were quite entrepreneurial as well.
Not exactly with the business sense. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Okay, and then finally, we get this question a lot for a lot of our predominant speakers and a lot of people. It's like, can you tell us a little bit of how you got started and a little bit of like your LinkedIn journey? So from maybe this first job as a gardener and then a delivery person, but maybe how did you get started into the world of service design and to where you are now?
I try to go, I try to be quick, but I go back actually to the age of 16, because I started to work in our local sports club as a basketball coach for kids. And I still today can draw on that, because I learned a lot about facilitation, handling groups, and learning with kids is really, it helps you a lot dealing with managers later on. I then worked in tourism all my life. I was a surf teacher in summer, a snowboard teacher in winter. I really got into that. I studied actually tourism management and then strategic management in tourism, and worked in tourism. and I worked in the field of innovation in tourism. So basically it was service design. I just didn't call it like that. A story that loads of us share, I think. But I didn't have the tools we have now, right? I had the tools I learned in business school and they didn't work. So loads of stories where I failed hardly with that. Like life is not like writing a business plan and executing, right? It's different. And actually, we were doing iterations. We were creating profiles of our customers, of the tourists. So we were doing personas. We were thinking about experiencing, but we didn't call it the journey map. We just did it without calling it like that. And then I discovered service design. And for me, it was like a boy box opening, like a box of toys, because suddenly I had names for the stuff I was doing. And I realized like there's actually a strategic process behind it and stuff I can follow and books I can read about this. And I think that's how I got into service design. By the way, thanks to Jacob, the co-author of my books, who is a designer by training. And also he worked for a time at Eric Spiekermann, by the way. I just heard that, but that's many years ago. And Eric actually wrote an endorsement for our first book then, which was really nice. But different story. And that's how I got into design, and then through him into service design.
Very, very cool. Wow, that is quite a journey. Also, I get the feeling that a lot of people are like, oh, I want to get into service design from all these different backgrounds. And it's nice that you also bring that. I saw that Kate also threw in the thing about, kids and executives and this training to facilitation. I also had an experience with summer camps, and I think you definitely don't lose that when it comes to facilitation and service design. Yeah, it's good to see like a different perspective in that isn't this, I studied design, I was a designer, and then I went on to do this kind of path. Okay, so that's it. If you have questions for Marc, we're going to jump into talking about journey map ops now. And so we're going to pick Marc's brain and all the good stories and all the good wisdom he has there. We have received lots of questions already in the Eventbrite sign up, so we have some from you. Thank you so much for submitting those questions and also joining us as well. So the first question, Marc, what is journey map ops? How does it work with service design? What is it with service design? What is this thing?
Yeah, I try to be brief. We started developing journey map operations like 6 or 7 years ago. And now there are dozens of companies around the world who actually implemented that and are scaling that. What it does is, let me go back first to journey maps. If I think about journey map, there are 3 different use cases for journey maps. We use journey maps within the setting of workshops, co-creative workshops, usually in the context of either research, so to learn from the participants, or in the context of prototyping, where we go through an experience like a future state journey and so on. And usually in this case, the journey map itself is more like a means to the end. It's more the conversations people have in front of the map than the tool itself. Then there's a second use case, and I like to call them the project maps. That's like the traditional way how we use journey maps, where we usually start with like assumption-based current state maps. We fill them up through our research loops with data and develop research-based current state maps showing the pain points of customer. From there, we spin off different future state maps where we say, okay, this is the vision for our project and so on. So it is a boundary object for a team while you're working on a project, and you use it either internally and externally for communication and so on.
Yeah.
Journey map ops is about the third use case, and that is if you use a journey map as what we call a management map. If you don't focus one map on one particular project, but you use a map, or actually a set of maps, to visualize all your projects and where they impact, at which moment they impact actually the experience. So to understand that, I like to compare a journey map with a map in geography. Think about Google Maps. You can zoom out and take a whole look at a continent where you don't see a lot of details, but you get a good overview. The more you zoom into a country, into a city, the more details you see. So when we talk about the scale in maps in geography, we talk about meters and kilometers and so on, or miles, depending on where you live. When we talk about journey maps, the scale we use is actually time, it's a duration. So we can do the same zoom in and out on a journey map level, from a high level and zooming into micro interactions. So if you think of a whole hierarchy of maps, and you have this, what we call a repository of map, and then you link certain data for the different levels into the maps. And data could be, where do the projects that run in our organization actually impact customer experience? And when I say projects, I don't mean the projects from the design or innovation team, because frankly, we only have that little impact on customer experience. Most projects that impact customer experience come from anywhere in the organization. Think about the impact legal had during GDPR. Think about any change of software by the IT team, any change in standard operating procedures. All this impacts customer experience. As a design team, we often are not aware of what's going to happen of all these projects. That results in contradictions between projects, overlaps between projects, and so on. So what we build in Journey Map Ops is actually an information system for the organization to become aware of all the projects and where they impact customer experience and when, who's responsible for that. Then you can also connect it with pain points, customer pain points and employee pain points. You can connect it with live data, and suddenly it actually becomes a dashboard of customer experience or employee experience for an organization. Oh, I hear myself. And it becomes a dashboard for the organization that actually connects the different organizational silos, because you all look at the same tool from the same perspective. And that brings really a bit more human-centric design into organizations. That was it in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, I think that was also quite well said. I wanted to pick up on one point, which you said as well. It's like mapping out all the different touch points and experiences that you have in that. How difficult is it to do that?
I first, before I answer your question, I have to say I don't use the word touch point at all.
Okay.
I don't like it. I think it's crap. The reason for that is touchpoint comes from branding from the 90s, and it refers to the billboard at the highway. Now, if we think about touchpoints, we often mean channels, or we mean interaction that happen on a channel. And loads of the touchpoints we design in services is nothing you can touch, and it's not a point. So why should we call it touchpoint? It doesn't make sense. And if I look at my clients, no one has a definition for it. Everyone uses it slightly different. It's so confusing that I just leave it out, just to clarify that. And now I lost track. What was the question?
Now I don't know what's customer interactions, mapping out customer interactions. I think that's a really good point, which I wanted to highlight, because I think that's important to also understand for an organization.
Yes, I got it. And sorry, it just I get emotional.
I love it. It's so totally right. Touchpoints is a rubbish word.
So the first rule is when you build up this journey map repository, never map just to map. So never just create a map to have a map, right? If we think again about the history of maps in geography, they always had a purpose. They always had an audience, right? We created maps to go to new places, to then keep track of these new places, to transfer communications. And if you look at old maps, they were fantastic. There were areas in it where we didn't know what's happened. There should something said like, here be dragons or something like that, because we didn't know what's there. I think that's fantastic. And we should have the same spirit when we create this repository. We don't create maps just to map, but we connect every map to a project. We build this repository over time. So you start with a high-level map, and a high-level map is kind of the customer life cycle. Everything from people have a need, they learn about your company, they onboard, they pay, they have a problem, they upgrade, whatever you do, right? Big steps. And then you map against this high-level map, what are the pain points? What are the biggest issues your customers have? And once you define those 1, 2, 3 biggest issues, then you start digging deeper and create the sub-level journey. And over time, you can use your sequence of projects also strategically to build up this repository. Now, if you follow Journey Map Ops, you also need to think after the repository about a governance structure. Who is responsible for which journey? I don't like the term manager or journey manager something, we call them coordinators, because we don't want to get into a power game within the organization. As soon as you call someone a journey manager, people get afraid about losing power, and there's competition internally and so on. But if you call it coordinator, then it's a bit more lightweight. What these coordinators do is they're responsible for the journey, not for the experience the journey maps, but for the journey itself, and map all the data on this map and keep it healthy and keep it alive and keep it up to date.
It's good that you also answered that, because one of the questions that will come up in the next section is about this and about ownership. So we will get to that question. I just wanted to make sure that Maureen's question was also covered there. And what is the difference between a journey map repository and a research repository, or are they similar? They learn upon what would it
that's it. That's a fantastic question, because it's another huge advantage of having this repository. Now, when I talk about research data in the context of service design, I always visualize or imagine the research data as a kind of pyramid. On top, on the tip of the pyramid, you have the summary of your data. That could be, depending on the organization you work in, could be a format like a key insight or jobs to be done or key user stories, like the summary of your hard research. Below, in the next part, you have visualizations of research data, structured research data, things like journey maps that are based on research data, personas, system maps, and so on. And then below you have all the raw data, actually your interviews and so on. Now, it's really hard in an organization if different parts. Now, think about large-scale organizations. I work with some organizations who have hundreds of designers working in service design. How can you make sure, and then different departments are doing service design as well on top, and some call it differently, like one's doing CX, another one's doing UX, another one's doing design thinking. They all do the same stuff, they just put a different label on top of it. How can you make sure that you can build on the research data of other people? It's really hard to build a system for that, but Journey Map Ops gives you that. The repository is linking not only projects that are currently going on or happening in the future, but also projects that have happened. And by that, you can link, actually think again about the pyramid, you can link into the key insights, and the key insights can be then linked into your project maps, and the project maps are then linked into raw data. So suddenly, if you build a project, you can look at the part of the experience and find all the research data behind it. So you can actually connect it with any knowledge management platform that you use, but you're able to find it based on the customer experience.
Whew. Okay, I hope that answers your question there, Maureen. And definitely coming from like Zalando, where we have 150, 160 designers, researchers, copy strategists, I definitely know the challenge that this is. And actually, this is one of the journeys. So good. I'm really taking notes here from the organization. But for people like me that go back on tomorrow, what day is it? Wednesday. We go back to the office and we got those people and we're so excited. And we're like, we need to do more with Journey Map Ops. And one of the challenges is communicating that and getting people on board. So maybe for just to help, well, me and maybe the others in the crowd here a little bit, how would you explain it to people that aren't within this and don't understand the journey map and how that would work, and how do you get them on board? Because this was a question that came up a lot in the Eventbrite sign up.
Nice. Yeah. Perhaps I'm happy to answer it, but as a tip, I actually published this year 2 white papers about the topic. Oh. One on embedding service design and one on scaling service design organizations. Basically 20 tips that I learned over the years on that, but at least works in my experience, right? Happy to share that in a follow-up mail. Yes, Dee, you do it? Yeah.
I'll hunt for those links now, but if you can share them with us afterwards, if I don't find them, that would be great.
I will, absolutely. So one of the tips is first build it and then show the value of that within your organization. Don't try to sell service design or sell Journey Map Ops, because you will have a hard time, right? People always try to sell this with like great examples from great organizations, and then you look at that and managers look at that and say, yeah, that's nice, that works for them, but not for us, we're different. We're not Google or Airbnb. We're like German Mittelstand, so it's different here. And they're right, it is different, but that doesn't mean that it's not working. So I rather recommend to start small. We love the idea of stealth projects. Stealth project means they don't, like a stealth fighter, which doesn't appear on the radar. A stealth project doesn't appear on the radar of the organization. So the biggest tip is give your first project the most boring name you can think of. Think about like process optimization or whatever. People smile and say, yeah, it's good that someone's tackled that, do whatever you like, go for it. And in this project, so what you actually do is you create a safe space within this project to try out things. So you can try out service design, you can try out journey map ops. Start with a small team. And perhaps don't start with customer experience, but start with employee experience. So instead of having the need to do research with customers and collect all the details for that, do the research on your colleagues or with your colleagues. And perhaps you team up even with HR, because employee experience is a huge topic right now. And this whole system focus on journey map ops really works well within HR and employee experience. So you often find common rates there. And then start small. Show the value of a working system. And once you can convince people by showing it, either the results of a service design project, in this case, I would even say like calculate the return of investment for every project that you do and so on. But in journey map ops, show the value that this little piece of information system already brings, and then start scaling it. But don't aim for the big shot. You're muted.
Sorry, I really like the hands-on practical project that is like really boring name. That's a really good incognito mode thing. And I think we really, it maybe feeds into a little bit of our ego and our pride as designers. You know, we want to be on the customer end, but actually we draw a lot of attention before proving the value, which is really, really well said. Okay, we have a few questions from the audience. Do you have one for us?
Yeah, actually one from slightly earlier about like how does this repository, everything kind of work, are there any actually tools? Like what does it actually look like? Are there custom tools that you've built or tools that you recommend for people to get started to actually make this repository?
Yeah. Of course, I mean, there's a reason why we started with the journey mapping software 10 years ago. And we're experimenting with that for a couple of years ago already. And it's possible to do this. Like you can link journey maps into each other. You can link steps with live data, like connect it with a Google Sheet or whatever. But actually, we're already building a brand new editor specifically for journey map ops and management maps. The great thing is, you sneak in service design into an organization without using the D word, right? You talk about a dashboard for customer experience, you talk management language. You don't need to mention design, and that helps us actually to bring out that thinking. But in the end, it leads towards connecting what you do to what's nowadays called triple track agile. Where you actually have 3 different tracks: a track for research projects, a track for prototyping projects, and a track for implementation or development, which is also research ops, design ops, and DevOps. And actually what you're building is an information system for that. So you have a completely different storyline to bring in this kind of working, this mindset into the entire organization. Yes, Joshua, thank you. I am sneaky, I know.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I think this answered another question from Edward earlier, when to involve people, which you also answered earlier, how to promote, how to find the right time to start to sneak in. It wasn't in Edward's wording, but I think that gave a great answer to it. That's like, you don't have to say, hey, everyone, I convince you to start this whole process and here's how we do it, but rather sneak in this.
The truth is, people don't care about service design.
Yeah.
But then if you look at what service designers often do in organizations, they try to sell service design. People don't care about this. They care about results. And one thing we've been talking about for years is design needs to have a place at the boardroom. And the way we tried it as a community in general, not like only there are other examples, obviously, but we tried to educate people about design. But actually what we should be doing is designers need to speak business language, because that is the universal language. Try to think in dollar signs and euro signs and people will listen.
Yeah.
I've started seeing it more and more, design courses and training that are bringing business into it more. Is this part of your school as well? Yeah.
It is, yes, it is. And I remember many years ago, probably like 10, 12 years ago, I was teaching at, I don't say which one, but it was a famous design school. And it was a master program for service design, one of the few that existed at that time. And I started teaching them a little bit of business, a little bit about costs and revenues and return of investment, and really just absolute basic language. And I still remember that there was a student there who said, but I'm a designer, I don't need that. Like, and then we had started a conversation. I said, okay, if you work in product design, how important are materials and how important are costs of materials? Like, could you design something out of gold and sell it? Like, does it work? It's in art maybe, but in design, And if we think about service design, what are the tools we work with? Sarah Drummond liked to say it's the organization, it's people we work with. And yes, there are also business logic behind it. It's processes, it's cost and so on. And that is the universal language we should be able to speak.
Yeah, so they agree. We also have a talk from Sarah Drummond on the service design drink, also very good, with Lou Dao, also a great colleague. So I have one last question in this kind of like understanding what journey maps up is, because it's a question that I also get asked a lot from a service design perspective. Very sneaky, thanks, Josh. What happens, so like the customer experience that we have, especially as Zalando, is sometimes seen as a linear practice, but I imagine in different organizations across many different pillars and across many different things that are going on, it's not a linear process, and a journey we often get told of as a very straight line from A to B in this kind of way. How does that work when you're trying to map out these things? And maybe this is a question you get often, but how does it map out these non-linear journeys in your journey map ops?
First of all, a journey per definition is linear. And the reason for that is there is no time machine. People experience life linear. That's just the truth, and that's how it is, and that's what we map. Now, if there are things repeating, and so there are a few use cases, right? There can be things that are repeating. There can be things where the sequence is different and so on. Let's start with the repeating bit. If you think about video games, the first level of a video game is usually just to learn how the game works. Then the second level, you start to get a hang of it, right? But you're not there yet. You're still learning. There's a steep learning curve, so it's still really easy. Then you start getting the hang of it, and actually one level after another, it's basically pretty similar and slightly repetitive. But then you really get an expert, and suddenly you get into the flow and you have a really different experience. So if you would create a journey map about the experience of a video game, which levels would you map? Definitely the first one, probably the very last one, or the one where you stop playing the game for whatever reason, and probably those ones in between where the experience changes. Does it make sense to have all the repetition in between? Probably not. I mean, a journey map for us is just a way to structure data. And we put on a map whatever makes sense. Now think about, again, maps in geography. What kind of data do we put on a map? First of all, we can look at the same region and look at different data. Look at one region and look at a street map and compare that with a farmer's map. They look similar, but they're very different data on it. Then look at city maps for tourists. You get a high overview map of the entire city, but then you actually zoom into specific aspects of interest. And it's perfect for this purpose. So in service design, we just use a map to whatever the purpose is, and we put on the map whatever makes sense. And if we leave out stuff because it's repetitive, it's okay. That's what it is. If the sequence is not right, again, does it really matter if the sequence is that important? If it is important, then we need to do different maps for the different sequences. If it's not important, like in management maps, it doesn't matter really. It's important that the data is there and visualized.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Can I jump on it with this other question that was from Florian, and a few other people have said, like, yes, please ask this question.
I'm curious. Yeah, I saw the +1, but I missed the question.
Yeah, it's scrolling back a bit. I'll read it out. And Florian, if you want to jump in and explain more, if there's more to explain, please turn your mic on. I'll just read it out first. What would you say when? So this is, I'm guessing, if you're trying to integrate this into across an organization, but when marketing has a journey and sales has a different journey and product teams have multiple different journeys to map, what's the advice on how to build this out across teams when there's departmental barriers, and how to make things actually connected? Florian, jump in as well if you want to explain a bit more, but otherwise, Mark, yeah, what do you say?
A good question. And Florian, if you like, unmute yourself and let's have a conversation about that. I just dive into an answer for now. A map always has a certain audience, and a map should be designed for a specific audience. If you ever present a map to someone, let's say to your legal team, and they look at that and say, yeah, it's nice, but it's not really useful for us. The subtext, what they actually say to you, but they don't put it out there, is this map does not contain relevant information for me. It's like you give someone who likes to drive a car a farmer's map that includes details on climate and soil and what have you. It's nice, but it's not really useful for the purpose. So how can you make it purposeful for this group of people? So in the case of legal, think about risk. At which step do we have what kind of risk? Think about contracts. At which moment actually people agree to the terms and conditions? Which moment people actually need to sign an NDA? Where did we get sued? And stuff like that. And suddenly a map becomes really interesting for legal. Now, if we want to use maps to connect different parts of the organization, in design theory, we like the term boundary object, coming from sociology. A boundary object is an object that has different meanings in different social worlds, but it's the same object. So they share one object, but it has different meanings in different social worlds. So in design, that means if we understand a journey map as a boundary object, depending on your background, you can extract different kind of information from the very same object. So suddenly a map can be used to connect marketing with legal, because they look at the same map, but it includes relevant information for both teams. And only then it actually makes click and they can suddenly work together because they have a shared boundary object. So if you have the case, and probably that is the case in every organization, that you have tons of maps in different departments for different purposes and so on. And then will be never the one map to rule them all, right? It's like the ring that doesn't work. We learned that. But perhaps if you need to foster some collaboration, look at these maps and look at the kind of data they visualized on the map. Doesn't matter how they visualize it. Like don't get distracted by the visual elements of it, right? One might do an emotional journey, others might add KPIs for it, but look beyond that and see what kind of data is on the map. And then try to create a map that contains all of this data. And suddenly you create a boundary object that helps both to connect and work together.
There's another question in the chat that I feel like follows on, but Adam, how are we doing for time? And the other, I go. This from Olga. If we're talking about data in maps, Olga asks, what sources do you recommend to use for actually building the customer journey maps? What had to bring the data in? Interviews, what kinds of interviews, other sources? Yeah. What are you?
Research data of any sort and kind. Where do I start? I have to warn you, like qualitative research is the topic of my PhD, which I never finished, but I I did it for a long time. So I could talk for hours about this topic, but in general, if we talk about quantitative and qualitative data, we often have a fight in an organization where, like, maybe going a bit above the line, like designer says only qualitative data, managers say only quantitative data, right? Quant versus qual. And we know it's not the truth, and I'm exaggerating now. The truth is we need both. We always need both because both suit different purposes, right? We need quantitative data to monitor how are we performing, do we have a problem somewhere? We need qualitative data to get actionable insights, to dig deeper. So one problem about any kind of research data is that any research method that you use is biased, always. People will never tell you truth. And if you do an interview, that you will fall into the trap of like social acceptability bias. People rather give you answers that are socially accepted, not the truth. The worst research method you could always do is a focus group. There's actually research by a Harvard professor who looked at what people say during a focus group, what they intend to do and what they actually do. And there is a correlation, but it's negative. So people rather do the opposite of what they say in a focus group, but that's a different story. So the only way to level out biases, all these different biases that we see, is by using different research methods. This is called triangulation, research triangulation. It's nothing new. That's basic research knowledge from the 70s. And there are three different kinds of triangulation to level out biases. Triangulation of research methods, triangulation of data types. So don't only take your field notes, but take photos, videos, collect artifacts, sketches, numbers. A rich data set really helps you. And then triangulation of researchers. So if you follow this rule of thumb of triple triangulation between different research methods, different kind of data, and if the different research methods point you towards similar results, then you probably have pretty valid and solid data to base a journey map on it.
Very cool. Well,
I'm so glad we're recording all of this. I feel like we could write a book from just the...
I'll give you a tip. There is a book where all the stuff I talk about is written down. It's just like too long to read it.
What's the book called there, Mark?
Which book is that?
I forgot it. Something was doing.
Oh, okay.
I'm posting the links in the chat now.
another do it there for us. Okay, so we're going to move on a little bit. There are so many challenges and intricacies when it comes to like journey map ops, but we do want to move the conversation a little bit. But there is one last question which I do want to ask because it's very practical, I think, and it's I think goes back into this being sneaky kind of thing. But if someone's time poor or working as a solo designer or a core team or collaboration, like what's like the basic part of this? Like what would you suggest they get started with first, especially if they're time poor or they're solo and they're strapped for resources? So what does a sneaky project kind of look like, I guess?
Yeah.
Would be the question.
The first thing is, and we actually don't know who said it first. Adam quotes me and I quote Adam for it. So I don't know who, the Adam Lawrence. Yes, we're happy to welcome you in the team as well. One of us said, if you only do two things in service design, it's research and prototyping. If you only do one thing, it's research. So if you're alone and think about, well, we only have a limited budget, what do we do? Focus on research, focus on understanding the pain points of your organization, the pain points of your customers. And once you identified a pain point in your interviews and your observations, and you see there's a pattern, and the pattern is actually confirming itself. By the way, that is in research theory, this is called data saturation, and that is the moment when you can stop doing your research. As soon as you have a pattern and it keeps emerging, you won't learn anything new anymore. Once you have that, then start fixing it, and you fix it by prototyping. And probably if you've done your research well, you already have a ton of ideas to get started with it. This idea fetishism of we need to do creative, putting post-its on the wall workshops, that's most of it is crap. We don't like, that is not really what design is about. Yeah. It's about understanding people and understanding the human side of that. and then prototyping and iterating your prototype again and making it better. If you understand, if you would do service design of a street, and in this street is one big pothole, would you, once you identified this pothole, would you start fixing it, or would you ask 100 more people if there's a pothole in the street? So if you're alone, that's the thing you need to do. Find the pothole and then damn fix it. And once it's fixed, then you find the next one.
Yeah. I'd probably do a journey map so that people can go around the pothole, and no, I'm joking. All right, anyway, let's move on. Does anyone have any last questions about journey map ops? I'm sure we could go on all night. This is a fantastically deep and intricate subject as well. There is a book and even a course that you can join into that. So we did.
I have to say it now, but it's what I say now. It's not public yet. It's the very first time that I'm going to say this.
But this, okay.
There
this
might
be, be on YouTube.
There might be a new book coming out on that topic. And I might look for collaborators, because like the last time we had 300 people who helped us work on the book. Thank you, Adam. Yes. And at the same time, this one, I'm going to invite people. It will be focusing on, if you can guess it, journey maps and journey map ops. Yay!
Wow, heard it first, yeah. Okay.
Because there's not the one book on service design, so on journey maps. So let's write it, and let's write it for managers. So you have something to pass on, and again, sneak service design in without calling it like that.
Yes, that's amazing.
Joshua, I'm just feeding that now, right?
Yeah, wow. Yeah, someone's asked, where can we pre-order it already?
No.
Maybe if it's still being written.
I'm just in the process of writing it. I will put out a website in a couple of weeks. I hope to get on it during Christmas and New Year. And then I start asking for collaborators. So keep an eye out on social media. If you follow me on LinkedIn or whatever, you would see it, and then you can sign up. And actually what you can do then is I invite you to work to co-create on certain chapters. You get a link to a Google Doc and with 100 other people, and you're going to review that chapter, have comments on that. And then I go through it, and includes part of that, others I discard, but we have a whole conversation on that. And that worked really well on the other books, and it just increased the quality a lot.
Yeah, definitely worthwhile. Can recommend.
Very exciting. Thank you.
And if you look at the first name under the collaborators of service design doing, you might see a familiar name. So that is my claim to fame there. Okay, so I wanted to ask, because I mean, now you just told us, which is super cool news. I would love a book about this. It will help us so much at Zalando. Please read this book. And I think what's really, really interesting as well, like, why did you write these books? Like, you started with design thinking and then design doing, and now you're doing one on journey maps. I mean, it must be an honor to write a book, but obviously you see a problem and a need. And how's that book writing side of your career going?
Well, first of all, you don't get rich with writing books. Like if you do this to earn money, don't do it. Or you need to write Harry Potter or something like that, but don't write design books. It's still a niche. But the very first book, the thinking book, it was mainly Jacob and myself, and then we included the community at that time. I mean, we wrote it in 2009, it got published in 2010. That was still, I would say, just the beginning of the first wave of boom of service design, right? And I was teaching service design at a university at that time, and there was no resource to do that. There was no book to do that. So I was pointing to different blog posts from agencies. So mainly at that time was things like LiveWork, Engine, like the early ones who at that time published a lot about that. But there was not really like a resource we could go to. So we said, if it's not there, maybe we should write it. And that's why Jacob and I got together. The whole idea started while we were skiing in a bar in the evening after a few beers. And actually Jacob at that time was still finishing his master studies at design school. He said, I need a topic. I said, well, let's do a book, right? We get together and the book will be like your design piece for your final show. And that's what happened. And yeah, then he won the European Design Awards with the book, the best of show. Like it was crazy. But at that time, it was really just, there was nothing out there. Let's do it. With the doing book, it was very different. So together with Marcus and Adam, we started the This is Service Design Doing courses, the executive school and the essentials course. And basically these are service design courses. And we created a script, like the first one we started in 2013 in Berlin, and then we had those courses everywhere. We developed a script over the years, and then we had this stupid idea at some point, oh, we have a script with 80 pages. That's basically a book. And the first book was more like a collection of different articles. Shouldn't we do the book about how to do service design? Of course, we called it like we called our courses. And then we realized that where that was not really the case. And then 3 years later, we finally had the book, and everything from the script, we in the end published for free on our website. And the book we wrote from scratch, completely new, and it was shitloads of work. I think it was really, really good because it's really the first book about how to actually do service design. And the free resource, again, my idea is to bring service design into as many hands as possible. So now there's a resource out there for free with 54 method descriptions for free. And the last story I give on that is we published another book called This is Service Design Methods, the yellow book, which is basically exactly the same content that we have for free on our website. But we got a few questions from people like, hey, it's nice that you have it for free on the website, but actually we would love to have a book for our workshops. And we would buy the book. So we went to our publisher, to O'Reilly, and asked him, hey, would you be okay with publishing a book while we keep the content for free on our website? And I said, it's a bit odd, but if you think it sells, okay. And we said, yes, but we also would like to put on the cover that people could also get everything in the book for free on the website, so that people don't buy the book and expectation management and so on. And they say, yeah, what the heck, just do it. And so if you look at the yellow book, even on Amazon, at the cover, you will find exactly the same content for free on this website, which I think is brilliant. I love the publisher for that.
That's a huge amount of trust. I would assume that they put in you. Like really quickly, what was like the biggest change that from thinking to doing, well, besides the last word, but what for you was like the biggest mental change between these two books, where you at, or what comes across? Or
it's a time difference, right? There are almost 10 years between that. Thinking, we wrote in 2009, published 2010, and it was a collection of articles. We were still basically exploring what service design is at that time. It was far away from having a settled understanding of what it is. And the doing book is then really focusing on how to do it with proper names. And for the first time, we were actually defining things as well, and trying to define language and tools and methods, and what's the difference between tools and methods and stuff like that.
Okay, nice. And well, I was going to say, if you were going to write another book, what would it be? But you already told us. So that's the answer to this one. Maybe I have another question in place then. If you could recommend another service design book, not besides your own, which one would you recommend?
Doesn't need to be well. No, I have a clear favorite, and you already mentioned Lou Down. It's Good Services. I always have it handy because I absolutely recommend. I love this book. That's a great one. Apart from design books, or maybe another design book, is Mike Montero, Ruined by Design. It's really like today I had I received a request to do training for, let's say, a big social media platform, and I will send them just an answer that I don't work for them in general. And I think as designers, we need to have social, like a certain level of ethics and moral, and we should stick to it, even if it hurts, because only if it hurts, it's actually your values. And I know, like, people need to put food on the table, and we can't always have the choices, but if we can have the choice, we should be doing this and stick to it. So I recommend that book. And maybe the last one is it's a business book. Yeah. And it's an old business book, and it's from Yves Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, called "Let My People Go Surfing." It's one of the books that is the foundation of the culture we try to establish at our company. And the basic line is, "Let my people go surfing." So if there's good waves, go surfing. If there's good snow, go boarding.
Yeah.
Have a lot of trust to your employees and give them a lot of freedom within the structure.
Fantastic. It looks like a ski trip is going to be booked after this call. I'm very excited about that, but to turn to the Austrian Alps. So of course, this is our end of year special. And while we have you, Marc, we know that you probably have a bit of a different perspective than a lot of the people here in terms of what you see, what you hear, and it is our kind of end of year special. So we wanted to maybe reflect and maybe, get some perspectives on where we sit as service designers and designers from all different backgrounds. Maybe the last 1 year and also 2 years and everything, what has been like a major shift for you in service design from, I would say the last year or the last couple of years that you've observed? What's one thing that you think is important that you see that's been changing?
I would like to reflect on two different levels there. On a very personal level, I think the biggest shift in the last 2 years and mainly impacted by the pandemic is less, or actually in the last 2 years, no traveling anymore. If I think back, like, I had an absolutely horrible ecological footprint, and that was always something that bugged me, but I tried to put it in contrast to the projects and the impact I could have on organizations and so on, but it never felt good. And I have been traveling for 2 years now. And there's no need to do it anymore. And I think that is one of the fantastic things that happened. Like, I actually can have more impact now in organizations and do it like this. Proper setup, having we can run whole projects like this, and it works. And I think that was proven over the last years. There is still a place for meeting real people, and definitely we need that, and there's a social need for that and so on. So I'm not saying that I won't travel anymore at all, but I think we can reduce that a lot, and that is really, really needed. In this case, another tip for a book: check out the book Worldwide Waste from Jerry McGovern. Worldwide Waste. He also runs courses and so on. Some other good books, Top Tasks and so on. But it's about the understanding that our ecological footprint doesn't only stem from like the physical actions we do, but also from the internet, and everything that we do, every calculation is actually having a footprint, and we're often not aware of that. It's really interesting for organizations to look at that. So that's my personal reflection. As a community, I think we really see the application of service design all over the world, all over different industries. Over the last 2 years, a lot have moved in the field of employee experience, in healthcare, of patient experience, and so on. It's really, it got on the top of the mind now of a lot of people. We see that, and I think we need to pay attention that we're not overlooked, that because what happened to design thinking as a term was that people took design thinking because they sniffed money there, and they offered really bad workshop, and they burned the name. Even though like the underlying idea and the process and all that is good, it's what we're doing. It's just a different label, but it got burned. And that is something I see sometimes happening with service design now as well. Like the first companies I talked to said, oh yeah, service design, now we tried that. It's nothing for us. Like it's nah. And then I start having conversation with them. I realized they had just had a really bad experience with a bad consultant who had no clue about what we're doing and who did a bad job, but that burned the name. And that is something we as a community, I think, need to pay attention to. That goes into the whole topic of maybe a code of conduct for service designers, that sticking to certain moral standard, ethics, but also on certain work practices. And something we can relate to and actually then refer back to, yeah, actually what you've done there or what you experienced was actually not really good service design, it was crap. And here's the reason why.
Well said. I get maybe in the connection also to the service design networks qualifications, there might also be an interesting point of view. Okay, well, we're almost at the end of time, and along with everyone else here, I was wondering, maybe Marc, if you could lead the charge, and maybe what is one thing that you're excited for, in maybe one word or a couple of words, for 2022 in the future, service design in the future, design in the future, or what is there something maybe you're just excited and looking forward to, well, besides releasing another great book?
I am looking forward for, again, personally, I'm looking forward for companies who really implement Journey Map Ops on a totally different level. Like I see now companies who connect journey coordinators or journey KPIs with bonuses for managers. I think that's fascinating. And that's really cool because it actually fosters like collaboration between different silos and so on. And that is something I personally look forward to. And I think as a community, we really look forward to like meeting the community again in a face-to-face area. And that is both locally. I mean, I know Berlin has a strong local community and that is fantastic. You have great events and just meeting like-minded people again and hang out, have a beer together.
Do you have any dates in mind that you might be able to drop or?
No,
No,
not yet. No, no travel planned for now.
Yeah, good stuff. God, I had a question there as well, and I just really blanked. Never mind. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. What are some good companies? Because you mentioned this, you mentioned I'm looking forward to these companies. Do you have companies now that you would say like, this company does it really well and this is how?
Nah, nothing I could name because it's still, everything is still in development and yeah, you know how it works. You have to sign NDA and so on. But if look out, sometimes they post stuff and they link me on LinkedIn. If you look at like articles that I am linked in, you might find some.
Very cool.
Even just like companies that for our audience that's listening now and that might watch later, companies that would be cool to work for because they're getting closer to having this, embedding this mindset into their practices and things like that without revealing anything confidential at all. Have you worked with companies that's like, oh yeah, check out these people, I don't know if they're hiring, but look at this? Yeah, because that's always great for our audience.
No, really, it's
sorry, everyone. There's still no good companies.
It's hard to tell. Yeah, no, I'm hesitant to name others and then not others.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
I mean,
Sorry.
me too. It's really hard to find these companies. Sorry.
I know.
So we do have one more quick question. Well, let's try and answer it quickly because I would like to wrap it up in just a second. But I think this one's also one that we got in a few times in the event, right, around multiple departments, multiple teams. Challenge we face is ownership. Teams also struggle to see the value of this or having a hard time adapting the blueprint tool. Any tips on a transfer of ownership to many teams for using the one tool? And also maybe you could also touch on this, the difference between a blueprint and a journey.
There's no difference. A blueprint is just a journey map with some specific lanes underneath. That's all. There's no magic behind it, even though there are people who make a big fuss around it. And if you think about where it originated, like where it comes from, it's like 1980 marketing, Lynn Shoestack and so on. A lot of the language that is used in the service blueprint is a bit outdated and often used, and that is a bit strange, and that sometimes leads to strange applications of a blueprint. Let's put it like that. But in general, a blueprint is basically just a journey map, and then you connect it with different experiences, with like frontline, backstage, support processes, and so on. The danger of that is because you have these internal perspectives that if you use it internally, people often get hung up on the internal processes and kind of forget that there is a customer experience somewhere, right? Because it's just like one lane, but it's about the internal processes. And it's our job then as a designer to be the advocate of the customer and always ask, so what is the customer experiencing meanwhile? Like I saw sometimes horrible blueprints with empty steps in the customer experience, and there is no such thing as an empty step. Like that means waiting time, right? So name it. What is the customer doing meanwhile? However, I think it's a blueprint or a journey map with like an activity lanes underneath where you say which department is running which processes, no matter which version of a blueprint you use. It's a great tool to connect different teams if they include relevant information. And then think about how you can think about it and don't stick to a blueprint like we learned it in school or read on papers, like this is the structure, that's it. You can add any kind of lane that you could add to a journey map, also to a blueprint, and by that suddenly make it relevant for other people. So tweak the tools for the purpose. Think about who's the audience of that and what kind of data do they need to make it work. And while you're doing that, be always an advocate for the customer experience or whoever is the leading experience and whose shoes you slip. How to transfer ownership, maybe to answer that bit. A tip is add a lane underneath, a blueprint, a journey map, doesn't matter, on what can be a swim lane map where you say, what are the different teams and departments and also not real people, but IT systems who have a stake into a certain step, who have something to do with that. And then maybe mark the one who's responsible for it. And probably you will have a hard time to mark the one who is responsible. And just having this conversation. So who is actually responsible for this part of the experience is a great conversation to have. And once you have that, and you have someone who takes ownership for a certain part, zoom in and do a sub-level journey of that and say, and give them the task. Okay, can you please zoom in and create the sub-level journey for it and connect it and show like, what are the pain points in details of this step? What are the issues? And perhaps add 2 lanes, one on pain points of customers and one of internal pain points. So what are the pain points for the team? Because often they're connected, and that's often, again, the sneaky way to bring the customer perspective in through internal conversations and so on.
Very cool. Maureen, I hope that answered your question. I would like everyone to join me in giving Marc a thunderous round of applause, whether it be snaps or...
Unmute your microphones for a second.
Yeah.
Woo! Yeah.
But that's not all. I would love if everyone could write down. So at the start of the night, we talked about things that we were thankful for in 2021. I would love if you could write down something that you are thankful for or looking forward to in 2022 so that we can celebrate it together. Thank you so much, Marc, for being with us tonight and for reflecting. Thank you for sneaking away and bringing those sneaky vibes to us on this sneaky service design drinks. It's been a pleasure to have you here, and I'm going to have to rewatch all of that because there was so much stuff to take on, so many great links, so many great tips. Yeah, we really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for everyone for joining. We've had an amazing year so far. We've really enjoyed all the different events that we've had, all the different speakers. You can find all of those events and all of those speakers on our website at sddberlin.com, or you can find them on YouTube. You can also subscribe to our channel. But wait, there is more. And I need to share my screen for this. Marc, in his generosity, has also offered for anyone that wants to get started in joining Map Ops, and anyone that wants to give it a shot, or maybe isn't doing it, or hasn't found the right tool, or stuff like this, a 1 month free pro account for Smaply. Marc, what is Smaply for those that don't know?
Just go on smaply.com and find out. It's a journey mapping software with enough advertisement. But by the way, we changed the pricing structure, and there is a free account now as well. So if you're a student or whatever, and you need to just create a journey map, you can do it now for free and keep your data then as well. And if you like to dig a little bit deep into some of the cooler features, there's a code. I would like to say one last thing here, because I would like to thank you as the host of this show, because I think it's fantastic what you're doing. You're putting your own work in this, and you're putting in great people and me somehow. And I mean, this is the community I love, and this is what I love about service design: sharing stuff, being open, and this only works with folks who actually run the community event. So big thank you to you to actually doing this, and keep up your great work. It's fantastic.
We are honored. We are absolutely honored. We are blessed. We are very, very thankful. Someone just asked how to find out about future SDD events. That is a good question. We will be back next year. We're not sure quite yet on what form and in which situation we will be. We are waiting for the current updates and things like that, but we'll be back next year with great speakers and great talks like Marc and others that we've had throughout the year. If you have a topic or a speaker that you want to nominate, maybe it's yourself, maybe it's someone that you work with, please reach out to us. You can reach out to us at hello@sddberlin.com. We will get that, or you can reach out to us on LinkedIn, or you can add us wherever you would like. You can book a mentor session with me and Marty, or me or Marty, on adplist.com. So there is a bunch of ways. You can probably even send some smoke signals, and we might see them in the future. But for all of our social stuff, you can find us there as well. So will we see you lovely people back next year? Marc, we'll possibly see you and cross paths with you next year. That would be quite a blessing and honor. But that is it for us for 2021. Thank you so much. The next event isn't on the 4th of August, just FYI.
Thank you so much, Marc. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank
See you
you.
next
Have a good
year.
evening. Thank you all.
Have a